Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing my initial thoughts of the Retroid Pocket 2. So I just got it yesterday and I've already spent a ton of time playing it. This is my first emulator handheld. It's really my first time with emulation in general. I've gotten much more into video games over quarantine, as I'm sure a lot of you have. Um, and yeah, I found out about this through, I got really into gaming YouTube over quarantine, as one does when they are bored. And so I really started seeing more about these emulation handhelds out of China and stuff. And then I found the Retroid, of course, which seems to be the most popular one right now. And in most of the reviews I've watched, no one has really, there's not very many reviews of this blue model here, which I think is such a shame because I think it is so beautiful and gorgeous. Just the color and everything. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and get started and just share my thoughts on the hardware itself. So with the D-pad, I've heard some people say that they don't like the D-pad, they think it's too clicky or like pointy, and I can kind of see that. But from those reviews, I was kind of expecting maybe the D-pad is kind of low quality or cheap, and I just want to say that is not the case. I'd say it feels pretty similar to like a Game Boy or a DS Lite D-pad. I think it's still high quality. It just maybe isn't for everyone. But it definitely gets the job done. It's not like some cheap, low quality D-pad or anything. I actually really like it. I can say it does kind of hurt your thumbs. Not really hurt even, just irritate maybe if you're pressing right on the edge and you use it because it's kind of, as you can see, the edges are kind of raised. But I mean, yeah, I don't think it's too bad at all. And then we've got the analog stick. This one is blue, which that's the only one I've seen because if you're familiar with the handheld gaming market out of China, all of these handhelds pretty much use like the Nintendo Switch analog sticks. And so does this one, but it's the first one I've seen that has a blue analog stick or a blue cap at least. It looks like the stick itself. Let me see if I can. It looks like the stick itself might be like white. But yeah, I mean, it gets the job done. It doesn't click inwards. You don't have like an L3 button with it. Something that I don't like about it is you can kind of see here, like there's sort of a gap in there. And I'm worried that dust might get in there. So I wish it was more sort of like flush with the shell, or even like kind of in, like if it sat down inside the shell more, I think that would be better because it does kind of stick out. And so it's kind of difficult to put the system in your pocket. But yeah, and then over here we have the digital stick pad, not sure what to call it. It's the digital slider, which I actually really like, sort of like circle pads, like on the Nintendo 3DS. I know a lot of people don't like those. I'm probably weird. Even the PSP has one too. I don't necessarily really like how the PSP one feels, but I like the indentation on the 3DS one. This one's okay. It's literally the same like cap as the analog stick. I'm not sure if they just like sawed that off a Nintendo Switch analog stick or what they did, but I honestly think moving it, I think it feels really nice. I like the feel of it. The only thing I don't like is that it's an 8-way directional input as opposed to like a full 360 analog. So when you move it, you're only getting like 8 inputs of direction. You're getting up, down, left, right, and the diagonals, which kind of sucks, especially since this would be the stick you would use for something like a first-person shooter, or like the camera stick. So to me, it would almost make more sense to have this be just digital 8 directions. Both of them being analog would be ideal, I think. But yeah, a lot of people don't like that this is like a slider pad. I actually really like that, and it's really nice and out of the way when you don't need it, which is something the Nintendo Switch lacks. Because if you notice, they sort of have the same layout as the button layout as the Nintendo Switch, with D-pad down here, face buttons up here, and then the sort of control sticks in either corner. But yeah, I mean, if this was full 360 movement, I think I would really like it. I don't know that I'd have any qualms with it or criticisms. But yeah, then we'll move on to the face buttons here. And oops, I just started something. But yeah, I mean, I've heard them described as clicky, and like I can see that, but it's a good clicky, I think. They maybe don't bounce back quite as much as I would like, but I mean, that's getting really like nitpicky. As I said, this is my first handheld, so maybe I'm not the authority on this necessarily, but I would compare the feel of them to something like the Nintendo Switch's face buttons in handheld mode. It's pretty similar to that, I'd say. So if you're used to that, this won't be anything new necessarily. And then we've got the shoulder buttons, and I love the shoulder buttons on this thing. The L and R buttons are just like wonderfully clicky, and oop, there's some light bleeding through there. I've never seen that. But yeah, they're just so fun to press. They just bounce back. I love them. And same with the trigger buttons, the ZL and ZR buttons. I think they feel really nice too, honestly. Here, let me... You can see they kind of press inward. So there's not a whole lot of travel with them, but I like the way they feel. And then, another qualm that I have is like the home, select, and start buttons, if you can see, they're all sort of on like the same piece of plastic. So when you wiggle one of them, you like can wiggle them all. I'm worried that further down the line, when I press one of these, it might like start reading as a press on multiple of these buttons at the same time. So I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, that's just a little nitpick I had. I really like the speaker grills. I think they look really cool. I like the little logo here. The screen is gorgeous. And something I haven't seen a lot of people do is like a size comparison, because before I ordered this, I was sort of having trouble conceptualizing the size of this thing. But for reference, it's about the same size as any like cell phone. I have the iPhone 12, just the regular size iPhone 12, not the large one, the Pro or whatever, or the Mini. And that's about the same size, like probably the iPhone 5, if anyone can remember that. It's like a little bit longer than the 4, but it's the same. And anyways, my iPhone 12 is about exactly the same size as this thing right here. Obviously, the screen on this is a lot smaller. But for a lot of what you'll be playing, it just looks beautiful. So let me go ahead. Oh, I'll show you up here too before I get into gameplay. You've got your mini HDMI output, obviously. I don't have a mini HDMI cable yet. If you did like the pre-orders on these a few months ago, apparently all those people got like gifted a mini HDMI cable. I unfortunately did not. However, they're like $5 online, so I'm not exactly crying. Yeah, so there's that. And then this is your USB Type-C output. Or like, so that's for your charger basically. And I actually have the charging cable with me. So yeah, as you can see, I don't know if it will focus on it. Oh, there we go. Pretty standard, just like, I don't know, it's kind of cheap looking if I'm being honest. Like the quality of the metal on the end just feels like it could bend really easily. So I might end up getting a different cable. But yeah, it's a USB. You have your USB, I think it's type B is what this one is called, on the other end. So it can plug into like any phone cube you have or your laptop to charge. I did experience some weirdness trying to charge mine yesterday. It was charging really slowly, but I don't know if that was a one-time thing or what. But anyways, yeah, so there's that. And then here you have the volume buttons, and you can hold start and press a volume button to adjust the brightness. And yeah, and then you have your little on-off sleep button and a little like power indicator light, very reminiscent of sort of like Nintendo DS Lite. I really like it. It's even green. Nintendo switched to blue with like the DSi and the 3DS, but I like the green. And yeah, then on the bottom you've got your micro SD card slot and your headphone jack. And something also I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, I don't know if you can see it here, there's just a slight like curvature to the back of the device. I hope that's supposed to be there and mine's not warped or anything, but I think it is supposed to be there. I think it's so your hands can wrap around it really naturally, and it does feel good. I think I hope it's intentional. And yeah, so those are my thoughts on the hardware. Let's go ahead and hop in to gameplay. So I am on, has a dual boot system on it, as you're probably aware. And it runs on Android OS. Since I just got mine, it actually came running the updated version of Android 8.1, I think, 8.0, I'm not sure. I know that they, initially when they shipped out, they were all running Android 6.0 for like the pre-order devices. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the benefits of hopping on the bandwagon later is that I didn't have to mess with updating the Android OS, because that did seem to be kind of like a hassle from what I saw with other YouTubers in this handheld trying to update it. But yeah, and then besides the Android OS, you have this Retroid Pocket OS that Retroid themselves has developed. And it's actually really nice. I know it also got updated when the Android OS was updated. But yeah, you have different tabs for all of your games. And right now I'm in category, which organizes them by system. And you can press like up and down to go through your games. And then you can press left and right to go through systems. So here's Dreamcast. It's weird. It skips Dreamcast when you go back left. I don't know why it does that. Anyways, Yeah, and then here's like a bunch of arcade games that I'm not familiar with, might dive into. Here's PSP. Um, PSP is kind of hit or miss. I'll get into that when I get into gameplay, I guess. PS1, N64, NES/ Famicom, SNES / Super Famicom, or SNES, I like to say. Yeah, and then GBA, and Game Boy Color. So let me also, before I hop into gameplay, hop on the built-in market. So if you press X, you can hop onto the online market. New game chart. And yeah, basically, I don't know how often they add new games to this, but you can see what games are popular right now. A lot of the popular games are games that just come like pre-installed on this, so I don't know like how accurate that is, if it's just showing they're popular because they're on every system or because people are actually going and downloading them for some reason. And yeah, you can also go to category, and then you can have them organized by system and genre, which the genres are weird because it says action, and then there's a picture of a golf a golf hole. I don't know if that's what those are called. I've played golf before once or twice, I think. Anyways, and then yeah, there's like a sport, which I don't understand why they have a golf icon on action and then a basketball icon on sport. Like, I don't know. And then yeah, the genres are really weird. It's action, sport, racing, and puzzle. And for some reason on puzzle, they have Pac-Man, which Pac-Man is not a puzzle game. And then they have shooting and fighting. And a lot of the shooting, you would think it would be first person shooters, but it's not. It's a lot of like old school, sort of like bullet hell arcade type stuff. And obviously there's first person shooters on here too. By the way, this is not Metroid Prime, obviously, because Metroid Prime is not 2D. That's another thing. A lot of the names in here just got literally lost in translation. And like this is Marvel versus Capcom, and it says Cartoon Hero versus Capcom 2. But yeah, a lot of the names are wrong. And sometimes there's not even, like here, there's not even a thumbnail. So you really don't know what games you're getting sometimes. So that is one downside of the sort of e-store as opposed to loading your own ROMs on here. Like I said, I'm a newbie to emulation, and I probably will get around to loading my own ROMs on here first, or at some point. But for now, there's also a search function, and then there's task management, where you can see what games you've downloaded and which ones are in progress, if you've got any in progress. But yeah, for now, for me, the Retroid front end as opposed to the Android OS, which Android is going to give you way more flexibility, sure, and you can use a bunch of different emulators. I believe this Retroid OS, this Retroid front end, is using RetroArch for most of its emulation. But I mean, for me, being such a newbie, this is fine for now. Because even though the names are weird and everything, like I can just hop in to a game, and these Game Boy Advance games look beautiful, and I already have so many different games, both pre-installed on here and games that I downloaded, that I don't necessarily feel the urge to go rushing into trying to figure out emulation on my own just yet. Like I said, I probably will get around to that, especially sorry, I just burped. Especially since this system is also capable of emulating DS games. It doesn't have a touchscreen, obviously, so you've kind of got to work around that. Um, but I mean, yeah, there's so many DS games from my childhood that I would just love to be able to play, but can't because they go for upwards of like $80 used online, which is crazy, but some of those games were really rare. And so it'd be much easier for me to find an emulator and learn how to emulate those games on here, because I don't have a good laptop for emulation. It doesn't have a lot of storage or anything. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and hop into a game. So this, if you can see it, it says Lockheed. I believe that's supposed to be Rockman, which is Mega Man's Japanese name. And L and R are sort of like used interchangeably when transliterating English into like Japanese. So I can see how they could get from like rock to lock. I don't know how they got heed. Like I said, the translations are really bad, and you're just gonna have to do some digging to try and figure out what games are which if you want to use the Retroid market, unfortunately. But let's go ahead and hop into gameplay. Oh my god, you can see my reflection. I hate that. So yeah, as you can see, it just looks beautiful. Let me go ahead and load a save state. Yeah, and with this recent update, they added save states, I believe, because I believe they didn't have those on the Retroid side previously, which would have made it a lot more difficult and gross. But yeah, here is the game itself, and it just looks beautiful. This is the best my GBA games have ever looked. And you can play with the resolution and everything. Here, let me show you. So this is the original resolution, which just makes it so tiny. Not playable at all. But you can do full or stretch, and full will put it at like the original aspect ratio and just like make it fill up the screen. So you'll have like black bars on the bottom and the top, and that's actually how I have it for most of the GBA games. But this is actually one of the few that I think looks better, taking up the full screen real estate. So I'll go ahead and put it onto stretch. Because sometimes when you put it onto stretch, it will make the sprites look a little too stretched out. But this does not suffer from that problem. I actually think it makes them look better almost, because I think they kind of looked a little compressed in the original aspect ratio. But yeah, and then, oh, I don't know where it's going. Okay, they're in school. But yeah, you can also, if you're really a fan of like, you know, that retro look, you can turn off. I have this XBR on, and that will just sort of like smooth out the pixels and everything and make it look less pixelated. Here's what it looks like without the XBR on. And as you can see, I thought I would like the pixelated look more, but it almost only, it's not really showing up as well on this camera. But when you're playing in person, the pixelated look honestly just kind of makes it look blurry when it's not on that original screen. And you can turn scan lines on, but they look kind of fake. Like, I don't know, not super enjoyable for me personally. And I think when you have this XBR filter on, I mean, it just smooths everything out and everything looks so beautiful. And I think this is how they would have originally intended these games to look, you know, without the GBA's like pixelation. yeah, these games just look so beautiful this way. So yeah, let's hop into another game. Let's do Advanced Wars 2. Now, this is a game that I have in the original aspect ratio because I thought it looked better that way. But I have the XBR filter on, and yeah, it just smooths out all those pixels, which unfortunately make it look kind of blurry on this screen. Oh, is it my turn? I don't know if I should do that. Anyways, that's Advanced Wars. I don't want to make a mistake, so I'll save that for later. But yeah, that's what GBA looks like. It looks really good on this screen. Just beautiful, honestly. Let's hop into something else now. Let's do PS1. PS1, in my experience, runs just like flawlessly on Retroid Pocket. I have not experienced any hiccups, any frame drops, anything really, which is great. Let me show you some gameplay. I hate that you can see my face in the reflection. I'm so sorry, everyone. This is also my first review, so I probably sound like a noob. But I appreciate everyone for sticking with me. Let's be Sexy Jenny, the Bat Lady. You can change your button layout in the emulator settings and everything on the Retroid front end, which is really nice. And you can definitely do a lot more tweaking if you're in the Android front end. But I mean, look how good this game looks. You've got like a little bit of audio distortion sometimes, but nothing noticeable. I'm like trying to play while looking through my camera screen, so I'm probably not going to do super well. But I mean, this game just looks great. It probably looks better than it did on the original PS1. I think I have... XBR is not on. Let's turn it on and see what that looks like. It's not really necessary on this game. Just kind of smooths out the rough edges of these polygons and like the resolution on these PS1 games. Oh shit, nice. Yeah, so that's Sexy Jenny, the Bat Lady, doing very well in her fight. Enough of that. Let me show you. N64 is a mixed performance. On the Retroid front end, at least. I know if you go into the Android operating system and use like Mupen 64 or one of those emulators, you can do a ton of tweaking and probably fix the performance. But let me show you a game that runs really well on... Oh my god, my screen is filthy. Let me show you a game that runs really well on the Retroid front end. And that is F-Zero. Well, maybe I jinxed it. No, okay, here it goes. Okay, let's do... Here, I think I had a save state. Yeah, okay, let's load that. Cool. Oh, crap. Why did it quit? That's weird. That's never happened. Let's try that again. I have experienced a little trouble with loading the save states. It was on an F-Zero GBA game. and I was like it was in the middle of a race when I saved it, so that probably wasn't super smart. And I got some weird like artifacting when I pulled it up. So maybe loading a save state in like the middle of a game like that is not your best course of action on the Retroid front end. I will say I've loaded save states like in the middle of a battle for like RPGs like Final Fantasy VII and everything, and it's worked fine. Haven't had a hitch there really. Okay. Now, so for a racing game, you really want it to run at like 30 FPS, 60 FPS. You don't really want any frame dips. And yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's running without a hitch really on F-Zero, which is great. I never got to play the F-Zero games, so it's really been a treat to get to experience them now on this beautiful little screen, because it's so fun and so hectic. It's kind of like Mario Kart 8 before Mario Kart 8. Yeah, so that's F-Zero. It runs really well. Let me show you something on N64 that doesn't run as well, unfortunately. And that's Wave Race 64. It runs fine if you're just doing like practice and there's only one rider or racer on screen, but once you get those multiple racers in, it really starts to suffer and to tank. Especially like when there's big waves or stuff, which like, as you can see, the water looks amazing. I had no idea that N64 could do water that well. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into gameplay.
Select your watercraft, please. Welcome to.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's already kind of chugging. Yeah, it's pretty sluggish. Not too bad right now, honestly, but yeah, it's getting pretty. Oh, yeah, as you can see, it's just kind of, it froze right there, which you do not want at all in a racing game. Anyways, yeah, that's Rave Racer 64. Let me show you some Dreamcast, and then I'll show you PSP. Let's do Soulcalibur, or Soul Ability, as Retroid wants to call it for some reason. Do I have a save state? Arcade. All right, yeah, so this is the main problem with this game in particular. You can already see like right off the bat. The backgrounds have this weird, like they flicker. Yeah. It's not great. It's not too distracting though, and honestly, the character models look great. There's a little bit of problem with the sound, but like, God, these character models still look so good, even today, especially on this tiny little screen. And the gameplay is fine. There's no frame dips or anything. Like, it is totally playable other than that weird stuff, whatever's going on in the background. And like I said, if you were to go into the Android end and get into like the Flycast emulator and tweak with it and stuff, like I'm sure you could get rid of whatever's happening in the background here. But like as it is, like I think this is fine. Like just to get in and do a few fights and then hop out. Like you really don't need the backgrounds to be perfect or anything. Let me show you, let me end by showing you some PSP.
Are you ready?
Did I not? Okay.
Proceed with above choices.
Did it save game data? Wow, that's cool. I didn't know it could do that. I thought you had to have save states. Let's do arcade.
Get ready to race.
And actually, as I understand it, Ridge Racer is one of the better running 3D PSP games. It's pretty playable for a racer, honestly. But from what I understand, like 2D PSP games run a lot better. I will say a lot of the ones in the Retroid market are in Chinese. Even though sometimes the games will say the language will be listed as English, they'll be in Chinese for some reason. But as you can see, honestly, pretty decent performance. I don't have a frame counter in here. I don't think the Retroid OS lets you use frame counters, but if you go into the settings, I think it already has like a frame skip of 1 on. But I mean, like this is pretty impressive for this little like $80 handheld. Just driving into the wall. Anyways, yeah. So that's the Retroid Pocket 2. Those are my thoughts. That's the Retroid OS. I'm not gonna mess around with showing you the Android OS. If you want to switch over to it, you can hold the home button, go to settings, and then you would go down to switch system. You can look at other people who do that on YouTube. Anyways, yeah, thanks for watching. I just wanted to do my thoughts on this little handheld because I've watched so many videos and reviews before I ordered mine and while I waited for it to get here. I ordered mine through DHL from the supplier on GoRetroid.com. It took about 10 days to get here, but 7 of those days were just waiting for Retroid to hand it off to DHL, really, because once DHL got it, it was here in 3 days, which was really impressive. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend them. It is like an extra $20 or $25 shipping, I think. So that makes it about like $100 total. But what I did is like you can do like a PayPal pay in 4 plan. And then I just paid $20 a week, like I think it's either a week or every 2 weeks, 4 times, and then or $25, and then you've paid it in full. And so you can kind of stagger the payments, stagger it between paychecks. Makes it a lot easier. And I mean, for the price, this is just such a good little handheld. I'm obsessed with it. I haven't put it down. I love it. 10 out of 10. recommend. Any qualms I have with it are just nitpicks. One thing I will say though is that like I don't know if this is just with mine or if other people have this problem. If you know how to fix it, please chime in. But when I put it into sleep mode, and I press the little sleep button, if I try and turn it back on, like, you know, a few seconds later, I'll just have a black screen. It'll be backlit. I don't want to do it now because I don't want to mess with it. But if anyone else has had that problem, please let me know, and please let me know how to fix it. Usually if I just let it sit for a minute in sleep mode and then I come back to it, it will come on fine. But yeah, that is an annoying problem to have, and it's been pretty consistent. So if anyone has any suggestions on how to fix that, please let me know. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.